Good morning. The Committee on Parole is called to order. Today is February the 1st of 2023. The time is 8:42. Members of the panel today are Ms. Pearl Wise, Mr. Pete Freeman. My name is Tony Marabella. I'll be chairing today. Support staff located here at DOC headquarters in Baton Rouge are
Russ Gordon Anderson, Gail Garan,
Don Boschak, Francis Abbott.
Thank you. Our remote location this morning is at Raymond Laborde. Would the staff at Raymond Laborde please introduce themselves? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, would the staff please introduce themselves?
Deputy Warden Wayne Millis. Hear me?
Yes.
Raymond E. Classification.
Joseph Moore on records.
Thank you very much. Our first case is going to be Mr. Gerald J. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, would you please give us your full name and DOC number? Mr. Johnson, I can't hear you. Are you on mute? Are y'all having trouble with the microphone?
Activity issue.
I think there's some problems with the microphone being connected or some reason.
Right now. It's Gerald Joseph Johnson, 630-772.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow the participants who've indicated they wish to speak to have their input. Currently, speaking on your behalf today is Heather Johnson, your wife, Renee Sanjay, your daughter, Morgan Leger, your daughter. Present on Zoom, but not speaking, is David Johnson, your son, Stephen Johnson, your son, Joe Daigle, a family friend, and Jennifer Hardy. In opposition, we have Miss Lauren Heinen with the DA's office who will be speaking, Mandy Miller, who is in person but will not be speaking, and Pam Frugier, who is here and not speaking. We also, I'm sorry?
Andy Miller will be speaking.
Mandy Miller will be speaking. Oh, okay. Okay, yes. Also present here at headquarters is Cynthia Tunstall, Mandy Miller, Larry Langley, Angela Langley, Sean Miller, and Mike Tunstall. At the end of the hearing, or at least at the end of the interview, in the hearing, you'll be allowed to make a brief statement before the board votes. Do you understand our process, sir?
Yes, I do.
This is the matter of Gerald J. Johnson, DOC number 630772. Mr. Johnson's date of birth is January the 6th of 1948. He's classified as a first felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of October the 3rd of 2020. He is not eligible for good time, and he has a full term date of February the 5th of 2032. He is currently serving a 17-year sentence on the charge of indecent behavior with a juvenile, having been sentenced on February the 9th of 2015. Mr. Johnson, is all of that accurate?
That's all correct, yes.
Mr. Johnson, your case has been assigned to me, so I'll be the one to begin the interview process, okay? Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Mr. Johnson, how old are you, sir?
Just turned 75 on January 6th,
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
8 years as of this month.
Mr. Johnson, tell me a little bit about your educational background. How far did you go in school?
I graduated out of LaGrange Senior High back in '66. I went a year to McNeese and 1 year to Sewella Tech.
What kind of work have you done?
I was brought up with my dad and my grandpa was doing carpenter work. And then I started up a delivery service that I had for 22 years. And then when I shut that down, went back to carpenter work, and I'm doing window and door installations.
Have you ever abused alcohol or drugs?
No, sir. No, not a no drugs, and I drink very little.
Mr. Johnson, tell me in your own words. Now, I want to say something, preface my questions. This is a time for you to be honest with us.
Correct.
I have read all of the reports. I'm gonna be upfront with you. I don't think you've been honest, but you tell me whatever it is you want to say today. Honesty is very critical for this hearing. So I'm going to ask you, if you would, in your own words, tell me what you did that caused you to be in prison right now.
No, I touched this Miss Miller, inappropriately, I guess it was, back then. And that's,
What do you mean you touched her inappropriately? I have information that you did a lot more than just touching her inappropriately.
well, they said that, she said that, I had taken her virginity.
I'm asking you what you did.
That's what I'm trying to explain that.
Well, no, you're saying she said. I want to know what you did.
I touched her inappropriately. But
Did you have sex with her?
no, sir, no. They claim I did, but I no.
So tell me how you touched her inappropriately and when you did. Tell me about what you actually did or what you're actually admitting you did today.
She had, her and a friend had gotten in my pool, and they had got into my liquor cabinet, got drunk, and she was in the pool. Her and her friend, they didn't have their bathing suits on. When I come out, tried to get them out of the pool, she fell back in, was laying on the bottom, so I jumped in, picked her up, put her on the deck, carried her in the house, dried her off, and put her clothes on. I mean, I wiped her down just like I did when she was, I've changed her diaper to give her a bath before, and she stayed at our house a lot. But her mom was working 2 jobs and going to McNeese, and my wife at that time was working. So that's about the only part that I know of touching her inappropriately would be during that time, I guess.
Well, tell me what you did. I mean, you're describing she was wet, you wiped her off. That doesn't sound like you did anything wrong. Is that your position? I didn't do anything?
Dry the legs off, wipe between her legs, wipe her breast down, dried her as best as I could, and put her PJs on. And as far as the sexual part, I took a polygraph test of that, and it came out negative. I don't ever recall doing any of that.
You don't recall doing any of that. Okay, well, let's talk about that. You didn't have sex with her in her grandmother's room?
Oh, no, sir.
You didn't have sex with her while riding horses in her uncle's property? Your uncle's property?
Yeah, she claimed it was my uncle's property. No, sir, not at all. We went there to work out.
You didn't have sex with her on the living room floor?
No, sir.
You didn't take her to a hotel room and get her drunk and have sex with her?
No, sir.
Now, you pled guilty to indecent behavior with a juvenile after you were charged with a very, very serious offense. Tell me why you pled guilty if you didn't do anything.
I did what my lawyer told me to do.
You pled guilty. The judge, when you went to plead guilty, he outlined things that you did.
Correct.
And you said guilty.
Don't recall what he outlined.
He gave you a factual scenario. He said, this is what you are accused of having done. How do you plead? And you said, I'm guilty, right?
He said that I was being charged with indecent behavior of a juvenile.
But he also explained to you what that means and what the facts were.
I don't
And
recall.
you said, yes, I did that and I'm guilty.
If I said that, I said I'm guilty, then I guess I said that.
Why would you say that? Why would you agree to go to jail for 17 years if you didn't do anything wrong?
Sir, when they first told me about it, it was just for 5 years. And then when we went back the following week to be sentenced, my lawyer called me, my wife, my daughter, and a friend of ours in the room, and he said that the judge wasn't gonna agree to that. I said, he says.
But the judge wasn't going to agree to that because he knew what the facts were.
He said that, I was gonna serve 5 years. And then when he brought us back in the room, he said, well, it's changed. He said, it's gonna be 5.5 years. So I said, okay. And he said, well, they're not gonna give us time. He said, we'll appeal. So, we went back out, and then he told me that when he brought us in the room, he said the judge changed it to 17 years. He said, I said, no, I said, I won't accept that. He said, well, for every year you serve, you get 3 years credit. So he said, it'll just be 5.5 years. So I said, okay, we'll go that route. So that's what I did. I went on my lawyer's advice. And that's where it went from there.
So you're telling me that Ms. Miller is lying.
Oh, part of it, yes, sir.
What do you mean part of it? She has outlined all of the things that she says you did. A judge accepted that and gave you 17 years. I'm sorry?
I said, I told you that when I wiped her off, I wiped between her legs and across her breasts and stuff. I said that, I did that, but as far as.
Indecent behavior with a juvenile is you getting some sort of satisfaction out of it. Simply wiping someone down is not a crime. Unless you do it for prurient interest or you have some sexual motive. That's what indecent behavior is about. It's not simply touching someone. It's why you touched them. And your lawyer would have told you that. That judge wouldn't accept that plea deal because he knew what the facts were. And you're going to sit up here and tell me you didn't do anything? You went to prison for 17 years and you're accusing this young girl of lying because you got remarried and because she didn't get some money out of something? Tell me about that. You took sex offender treatment?
That was just my opinion. That the reason she called my daughter and told her that she needed to talk with me because I had said something ugly about it. If I didn't call her, she was going to make my life miserable. Next thing I know, these charges were filed.
Yeah. So she's lying about all this. That's your position.
Sir,
none of this happened.
I mean, it's all down there on record. If she says it, and I'll just say, okay, I'll agree with that. Everything. That's, I mean,
Well, you're saying the words, but you're not feeling the pain.
oh, absolutely, sir. It bothers me from the day.
Oh, I believe you're feeling the pain. You've been in prison for a long time, 8 years. Well, let's talk about the programs that you've taken. You took sex offender treatment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so tell me what you learned in sex offender treatment.
I got all 4, I did all 4 phases of.
I understand that. Tell me what you learned.
What I learned was that
Tell me what you got out of it.
the grooming of trying to get someone acceptable for sex and the situations you put yourself in and not to put yourself in.
In reading these reports and reading all of the evidence that I have seen, that sounds like you. You put yourself in a position where you did all of these things. Did you,
All right.
as you took that course, did you realize that you were seeing what you did?
Absolutely.
What do you think Miss Miller, what do you think she's gone through?
Oh, I've taken a victim impact class, and I mean, it opened up my eyes on a lot of stuff what they go through. You know.
Well, tell me what she's gone through then. If your position is you didn't do anything wrong, tell me what she's gone through then in your mind, in your heart. Tell me.
That she's gone through the anxiety and depression and stuff. That,
Why?
because of what I've done.
Well, what did you do? You tell me you didn't do anything. You wipe her off when she got out of the.
everything you said, but I've tried my best in here to better myself, to not make those kind of mistakes. Like I was telling you, the impact, the victim impact class is a terrific class. I mean, it's
Mr.
really,
Johnson, let me just tell you one thing about, I'm only one member of this panel, okay? But I'll tell you a little bit about me. I've been in the criminal justice system for 50 years. I was a prosecutor, I was a defense lawyer, I was a judge, and now I sit on the parole board. The one thing that I know about sex offenders is until they admit and concede what they've done, they're going to be a problem. And I have not heard you 1 minute be remorseful and admit what you've done. You're beating all around the bush because you probably know what words or magic words this board wants to hear.
no, sir. That's
But
fine.
I have not heard you say the things I did to that young girl are horrible. And I absolutely regret it, and I can't imagine what she's gone through. I haven't heard that. Give us for a second.
A lot of stuff wasn't explained to me by my lawyer in court and what have you. But I'll go, I agree with you. You know, what I done was wrong, and I agree that it's wrong.
The microphone is going out again.
I might have touched it, I guess. But anyway, I agree with you completely, sir.
Now, you've taken Cage Your Rage, which is anger management, and you've taken sex offender treatment. What other programs have you taken while you've been in prison for the last 8 years that are meaningful to you?
Well, I took the outside dad, I took the victim awareness, Cage Your Rage, pre-release, men's work, and all 4 phases of risk management. And I have 9 Bible studies that I've done over the time.
9 what?
9 Bible studies.
Bible studies.
Yes.
Have you taken Thinking for a Change? Have you taken any courses that would allow you to look introspectively and to kind of really understand the consequences of what you did?
Yes, sir. I think the ones that I've taken,
I understand.
it's all of that. The one, I think it's been changed. I've heard of it, but I'm not sure what it consists of. I just took the ones that I thought was necessary, and I told here, told them what I've taken, and if I needed to take anything else, and I've taken exactly what I was expected to take. And then a couple of those I didn't even have to take. I took them just to better myself. And especially in the faith-based stuff, I mean, it makes me realize, that what the way life should be, what it ought to be.
Gordon, what can you tell us about Mr. Johnson?
Well, sir, Mr. Johnson, he's been here, like you said, he's been here for a few years.
But Warden, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. We can't hear you.
He's got a pretty good conduct record. He's been here, like you said, those 8 years. He hasn't had any write-ups at all since he's been here. He has taken some classes. All those classes that he mentioned, he has taken and is documented. He has taken a few Bible classes. He's a Strive member. He's currently a Strive member, which is, of course, are honor offenders. As far as the T4C, I mean, that is something that may be a thing for him to take, to be honest with you, because it's going to make a more retrospective look at himself and look at different areas, even though some of that is picked up in pre-release and some is picked up in victim advocate and that, but that T4C, it's more of a placing yourself in those situations, as you all know. So the T4C might be a very good idea to get in that class.
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate your comments. Any other questions? All right, now we'll hear from your supporters. Heather Johnson. Ms. Johnson, if you would please give us your full name and tell us what you'd like us to know about your husband.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Heather Johnson. I am the wife of Gerald Johnson. and I'm speaking today on behalf of our family and friends to offer our support for Gerald being granted his request for parole. I have spent the past 23 years with Gerald, and in those 23 years, I have known him to be gentle, kind, loving, supportive, compassionate, humble, and hardworking. Prior to being charged with this crime in 2011, Gerald had no criminal history. After being indicted in 2011, Gerald was out on bail for 3 years prior to the plea deal that was offered in November of 2014. During the time he was out on bail, he followed every requirement that was a condition of his release. He made sure that he didn't deviate from those conditions, and he went above and beyond what was required of him during that time. Since being incarcerated, Gerald has completed every requirement in order to be considered for parole and has maintained a clean record while serving his time. He's been a model inmate and has been a good example and mentor to many other offenders that are with him there. And he leads the light crew at RLCC, and he is very trusted and respected throughout the complex. Oftentimes, when we have visited him, other inmates and guards tell us how much they like and respect him. The warden at RLCC even granted special permission for my daughter, Morgan, to bring her little girl, Charlie, to meet her papa for the first time when she was 3 years old, and she has been to see him a couple of times since. Today, we would like for you to consider these next few points. Gerald is a loving husband, father, son, son-in-law, brother, brother-in-law, grandfather, uncle, and friend. There are many people that love and miss him and look forward to his homecoming. His mother is 94 years old and is living in a senior care facility due to her failing health. Her biggest desire is to see her son before she dies. She's had multiple surgeries over the past couple of years and is in desperate need of him to be near her in her final days. Gerald's second to oldest granddaughter, Brittany, who was 27 years old, unexpectedly passed away last January due to complications from COVID. Gerald was not able to be here with his son, Stephen, and the rest of our family to mourn this loss. He was also not here to be with the family and friends of two of his best friends, our best friends, that were tragically killed last January in Costa Rica. He also missed being here with his best childhood friend that tragically lost his son in a boating accident this past summer. Gerald's youngest son, right here, Stephen, is currently undergoing cancer treatment, and Gerald's not here to help Stephen navigate through that. I'm saying all of this. In saying all of this, what I would like for you to consider today is that not only has Gerald served physical time behind bars in the past 8 years, but he has served emotional time as well, and so have all of us, his family and friends. Gerald has missed many milestones in our lives, and we have missed him being here and have needed him here, and he has needed us. I would also like to say that Gerald's health has greatly declined over the past 2 years. He has developed diabetes and has to take insulin twice a day and is required to have a special diet to help control this disease. He has also had several other health issues as well as some dental issues, and we would like for him to be able to come home to receive the medical attention he needs. I would also like you all to know that the original attorney that was handling this case misled Gerald and us in regards to the plea deal that he was offered and accepted. The attorney told us that the DA offered a deal for him to plead guilty to indecent behavior with the juvenile with a 4-year sentence. He did not tell us that the length of the sentence is ultimately up to the judge. I was present, so I know what was said. Gerald would never have agreed to a plea deal with a 17-year sentence. As you can imagine, when Gerald was sentenced in court that day, we were horrified and shocked. We immediately obtained another attorney who advised us that we could file an appeal, but only on the length of the sentence. Unfortunately, the new lawyer we retained to handle the appeal did not fulfill his obligation, and the time frame to file the appeal expired, leaving us with no other options. We filed a complaint with the Louisiana Attorney Disciplinary Board, and that attorney's law license was suspended for 2 years. I'm almost done. Gerald has a huge support group that will be here for him if he is granted parole. He is very aware of all that will be required of him if he is able to come home. And so are we, his family and friends. We have all studied the requirements and we will work together with him to ensure that he meets those requirements and that he does not violate any law or restriction or condition of parole. In closing, I would like to say that we recognize and appreciate the difficult task you have before you today. We understand that you all have to take many factors into consideration when granting parole to an offender because the safety of our society is in your hands. Our prayer is that each of you will see that Gerald has been rehabilitated and has served his debt to society and is not a danger to himself or anyone else. Please allow him to come home to his family where he is needed and where he belongs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, each speaker is only to have 3 minutes, so you've taken a lot of time. So let your two daughters testify, say whatever they'd like, but they're going to be limited to about a minute.
Okay. Just speak from your heart.
Can I go?
Yeah, go.
My name is, would it be okay if I went Morgan Leger?
Okay, sure.
Okay. I'm Morgan Leger. Gerald Johnson is actually my stepfather. He's not my biological father, but he has raised me from the time that I was 7 years old. He has taught me to hunt, to ride horses. He's helped me learn how to drive. He's taught me to be the woman that I am today. And I have been alone with him for extended periods of time while my mother went on business trips, or, you know, if I was on summer break or something like that. I was alone with that man from the time I was 7 years old, and he was sentenced when I was 22. And he has never been inappropriate with me in my entire life. That man is my father. He has missed my wedding. He was not able to walk me down the aisle. He has missed the birth of both of my children. He has only met my oldest daughter, who is 6 years old now, twice. And she loves him just as much as I do. I would love to have the opportunity to have him come home and be part of my children's lives, because I know who he is and I know he's a good person and I love him very much. And I beg of you to please see that in him. See who he really is. And that is a good person. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Get your comments.
I'm Gerald's oldest daughter, Renee Saunier. He's been my dad for 52 years. Never let me down. Always been there for me and my brothers. All of my friends have loved him. We have never felt unsafe around him. But I do know that today's hearing is about whether he is going to be a danger to society if he is let out. He is not. We are all here to support him. He wants to come to us. He has a very strong group of people waiting to help him navigate these waters. He has taken the courses. The victim impact was the one that made the biggest dent in him. I have a niece that was raped that we just went to trial for a few months ago. Her accuser was put away for 40 years. So we are not unsympathetic, and we are well aware of what the victims go through. If that was what we were facing today, we wouldn't be speaking about it. It would be a very different story you would be getting from us, but you're not. You're getting support from us because we know that he's going to do what he needs to do to stay with us, not only for his sake, but for our sakes and his mom's sakes. His grandkids, he's done the time. They said 35%, he's done that. He's done all the classes above and beyond. He's even helped taught the risk management class. He was so good, they asked him to teach it, and he willingly accepted. He's helped many of those men in there to get where they were at so that they could be released. Now we just need you to see what he can do and release him to us.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your comments. Now we'll hear from the opposition. Ms. Heinen.
Steve. Everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
Board. My name is Lauren Pine and I'm the district attorney in Jeff Davis Parish. Today is a very important day. Today, the DA's office stands with Mandy in solidarity against Gerald Johnson. You see, Mandy went through two nightmares. Not only was she sexually abused and molested by Gerald Johnson, she also had to fight to be believed by the people who were supposed to protect her. Mandy's is one of the first files that I reviewed when I took office. I reviewed the file on a Friday and I didn't sleep all weekend. I didn't sleep because the file was crystal clear. Mandy had been raped repeatedly from ages 8 to 13. Why and how were the two questions I kept asking myself. All of the markers were there. Why and how? Because Gerald Johnson had conned the community. He had conned his own family. Even today, you've heard how much he did for his community, how much he's done, how involved he's. That's his costume, as we well know. He showed 8-year-old Mandy his true self. Her first memory of Seesaw is the game Gerald Johnson played with Grandma that he wanted to teach 8-year-old Mandy. Instead of a seesaw at the park, it was Gerald Johnson's penis and his perverted game. Mandy fought to seek justice for herself. In return, she was forced to undergo a psychological evaluation to determine whether she was telling the truth. Dr. Semino, a psychologist, reported that indeed, Mandy was telling the truth. Mandy went through the nightmare of being victimized twice. The nightmare of not being believed by those who were supposed to be helping her. Mandy fought, and she continues to fight for Gerald Johnson to remain in prison for every year that he was sentenced to. You see, Mandy makes it very clear that she's going to make it very clear. She's serving a life sentence because of the crimes that Gerald Johnson committed against her. A crime that he is not remorseful for, as we just heard. This caused more than the wreckage of Mandy's life. It caused her family to be torn apart. Gerald Johnson's actions caused it, not Mandy's. She was groomed. He will not change. For these reasons and the reasons outlined in our supporting letter to the board, I implore you to keep Gerald Johnson behind bars. The DA's office is here to stand with Mandy and will be here at every parole hearing until Gerald Johnson has served all 17 years of his sentence. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll hear from Ms. Mandy Miller.
Since August 6, 2010, I've been on our justice system. At times, it caused me stress and anxiety. Not only did I have to endure 5 years of fighting for justice, when at times I felt like giving up and would have not for my support. I have to fight to keep my monster in prison. Every 2 years, this process brings up my worst nightmare is emotional support that I battle daily to week. I must find a place deep within myself to fight my anxiety attack. This place that at times feels like I'll never find, just to function. I feel weak and small every time an anxiety attack comes on. Yet again, like Gerald was waiting. I have immense anxiety and at times I have overwhelming depression. I have to fight every day for myself and my family. It brings up pain and heartache for the relationships I have lost and the ones that I've suffered. This past holiday season is a 12th. I have not been able to spend Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Eve day with my sister, my uncle, and my godchild because Gerald raped me. I'm not the only one suffering from his actions. My entire family is. My biggest fear is Gerald being released, especially early. He still has many supporters in the community I believe is in his agency. I fear for the children that will possibly be exposed to a rapist and a child molester. During the first parole hearing, Mr. Roach asked Gerald about his claim of being innocent when he pled guilty to indecent behavior with the juvenile. Gerald said he pled guilty to the one time. I would like to know what time rape he was guilty about. wasn't when I was an 8-year-old child. Playing with my dolls and my baby dolls and my Barbies and say, oh, look at their Judy and their boobies, show me yours. Was it when he told me what an orgasm was? Was it the first time he raped me in my grandmother's room during the day? While he held me down and I cried, begging and screaming for him to stop, and he just laughed in my face. Or was it when he raped me at his uncle's property when we were riding horses and stopped for lunch in the woods and wouldn't allow me to get back on the horse? Or when he raped me on the living room floor while my mom and grandmother went walking? Or when he brought me to the hotel room and got me so drunk that I don't remember what happened that night, only that I woke up naked, which is my worst memory, because I don't know what he did to me. Was it when he got in the pool naked with me and my friend? The incidents he's claiming, where we were in the pool and he was touching on me and my friend and rubbing on us. Was it when he raped me on the living room floor after we dropped my grandmother off in Houston for her flight in Germany? I can continue to ask what time he raped me that he feels guilty about, but we don't have enough time for that today. My biggest question is why? Why me? Why did he rape me for so many years? Why did he make me feel like no one would believe me if I told? Why still my innocence? I do not know how an 8-year-old child or any child can be sexually appealing. That is truly disgusting. I have lost a relationship with my mother, who's now passed, and my grandmother because of what Gerald did to me. They didn't want me to report that Gerald raped me because they did not want the stigma placed on. They were more concerned about themselves and how they would be perceived than my well-being. In April 2015, I found out my mother had stage 4 kidney cancer. I was only able to help take care of my sister, who is 18 years younger than me, because Gerald was in prison at the time. I truly believe in my heart if I'd still been fighting for my justice, I would not have been able to help. Through my mother's 4-month cancer battle, she finally began to see how much she failed me as a mother, the person that was supposed to protect her child. On her deathbed, she apologized for failing me as a mother and not seeing all the signs of Gerald's rape and molestation. I was able to forgive her and let her pass away in peace because he is in prison. I have struggled over the years feeling embarrassed because of what he did to me and for how long it went on. He had me believing no one would believe me if I told him what he was told him to do. There are many reasons victims and survivors of sexual abuse delay reporting or never report. They believe no one will believe them, or they blame the victims. Another reason victims and survivors don't report is because our justice system tends to re-victimize them and want them to defend their life choices and have their lights out for all to see, while the defendant gets afforded all the rights and privacy. I was and am still blamed and called a liar by his supporters. I truly believe that if I had reported this crime when I was younger, I would not have been strong enough and had the courage to fight, still fight for my justice. Our justice system is pro-defendant. They have all the rights while victims get dragged through the mud, or at least that was my previous experience with the previous administration for the DA's office. I had to go to Dr. Semino and tell another person about my sexual abuse and relive my nightmare to get justice for myself. It takes a toll not only on the victim's mental health, but also their family and support system. I have and will continue to live with the shame and embarrassment and emotional effects of this for the rest of my life. I hope what he does to him eats away at him for all eternity. Many people believe that a 17-year prison sentence is harsh for someone his age, but I completely disagree. Now, I would call my life sentence a harsh and unfair sentence, a sentence which I cannot seek parole because of Gerald's action, which will be with me forever. 17 years for him is an easy sentence, considering the life sentence I received at 8 years old, the day he began molesting. I have served 31 years for his actions, which is almost twice as long as the 17 years. I am serving a life sentence for no fault of my own. My sentence was handed to me by a real life monster. I'm a year 31 on my sentence, so his almost 8 years served is nothing compared to mine. Victims never get to escape their life sentence. So why should criminals be afforded the right to escape their sentence with parole? How can someone think they are ready to be released and deserving of parole when they have shown no remorse to the victim? 2 years ago, he showed no remorse to me in the first parole hearing, simply saying, I pray for Miss Miller every night. 8 years ago, he showed no remorse when he was being sentenced, while he was smiling in the front of the courtroom. And through all of the years I have fought for justice, no remorse has ever been shown, simply blaming me, the victim. Remorse now that I have mentioned it means nothing. True remorse is only true when the person committing the wrong is truly heartily sorry for what they did without being told what they did was wrong. Please do not grant him parole due to his age or health. If I were, God forbid, come terminally ill with something, I don't get granted parole for my life sentence. So please don't grant him his for his health. I was an innocent 8-year-old child when the grooming began. An 8-year-old little girl that loved to play with her baby dolls and Barbies. An 8-year-old that believed the world was a great, safe place. An 8-year-old that loved riding horses. Gerald took that from me. He should have to pay dearly for what he has done. My dad and entire family have also been given a life sentence for Gerald's action. My dad must live with a horror no parent should ever have to live with, knowing their child has been sexually abused. My dad trusted Gerald, thought he was always watching out for me. My dad thought Gerald was his friend. Also, the sentence received less than the mandatory minimum of the original crime. He was charged with aggravated incest, which carries a minimum mandatory of 25 years. I know many people say he had a clean record, no criminal history, and he is old. But the fact is he committed aggravated incest against me. He only had a clean record because he was never caught. But Gerald has been a criminal for at least 31 years. Just because a person never gets caught committing a crime doesn't mean they get committed. 8 years ago, I had instant relief that Judge Ganell sentenced him to 17 years of hard labor. When the sentence was read, I felt like all the tears, heartache, trauma, nightmares, and flashbacks, and the fight my family and I put forward since 2010 was finally worth it. I feel like my family and I have finally had some normal that we desperately needed and deserved. And I fought dearly for every day of the 17 years. I stood up to the DA's office that never put victims first, that allowed their paralegal, Jennifer Sonia Hardy, to release information multiple times to the defense and was never punished for it. I had to put my life out for all to see for the 17-year sentence. I go into the media for an illegal plea deal of 4 years home incarceration. I lost half my family. I lost holidays with my sister and godchild, and I also lost my faith in the justice system because of the previous DA's office. I had to relive the horror of what was done to me countless times. I fight every day to be a survivor and not let what he did destroy my life. I finally have Gerald in prison, no longer allowed to live as a free, innocent person, no longer being fearful to see him in public. Having to relive these memories every 2 years for parole hearings is truly gut-wrenching, but I will never stop fighting for justice and for him to serve his full 17 years. Since coming forward in 2010, it was my personal goal to help victims find their voice to stop abuse. I'm proud to say that a friend and I, along with Senator Dan Marsh and Senator Brett Diamond, went to the state capitol to get Aaron's law passed in April of 2016. The law educates children to pre-K to 12th grade about protecting themselves, safe touch and unsafe touch, how to get away and tell the day, and educates parents on sexual abuse. Aaron's law was started in Illinois by Aaron Barron, who was sexually abused by her best friend's uncle when she was a child and her cousin. This law has now been passed in 37 states. It is now taught in Louisiana schools. My youngest son came home with a paper to inform parents of Aaron's law in 2020. When I saw the paper, I cried, feeling like I was doing something by advocating for the passing of Aaron's law and telling my story that I'm giving kids the voice and resources they need to protect themselves or their friends. Our children deserve the best. I wish this law had been there whenever I was being abused. It would have saved me a lot of heartache and trauma. This is one of my biggest accomplishments, besides being a wife and mom. It gave me purpose, a way to help other victims and survivors find their voice. My 15-year-old son, whenever he found out about the first parole hearing, put all the previous years together. And I guess overhearing conversations we didn't think he was listening to. And he started crying and he said, "Mom, I know what happened to you when you were a little girl." Merciless husband rage. That broke a part of me because it took my kid's innocence away. And I didn't want my son to look at me like that. And he said, "I just want you to be safe." Just this week, my 14-year-old son was asking my 14-year-old son was asking how many more of these do I have to go to? And telling me that he's worried about the bad guy getting out. My 15 and 14-year-old are scared that Gerald is released. I will no longer be safe. It truly breaks my heart that my children are also being affected on an emotional level and mental level because of Gerald. He has now taken innocence of my children, and it causes them undue stress and anxiety. This is something that will never be okay. Parole board members, I'm begging you, please do not release him today. He has already taken so much of my life. Please allow him to take it forward. I have allowed him and his sick actions to affect my life for 2 years. It's a daily battle, some harder than others. I'm still fighting every day to be a survivor, not a victim. I'm still waiting and wanting answers to the questions I have, which will more than likely never be answered truly, because the people that have the answers will never admit their faults and failures with my views. My biggest question is why, and I truly believe if he is released, it will take a tremendous negative toll on my mental health. Again, parole board members, I'm begging you not to grant him release. If you do grant him release today, I'm asking you to please not allow him to return to the state of Louisiana, because I have ran into him multiple times during the court proceedings, and it's not a fun. Thank you all.
We could hear briefly from Miss Cynthia Tunstall.
Since I know you've read my letter, I just wanted to add a little bit and not read the full letter. I know you've read it and I trust you have done this, because a lot of what you spoke of is the part that my brother lives with every day still haunts him, because trusted Gerald. He thought he was a good person. Talk about a heart swallow. We trusted Gerald from the time she was an infant until 2000. So this did not start 15 years ago, 10 years, 2010. She told me this week, sitting with her loving father, that he molested her. And when it came out of her mouth, she shut up because she realized her mother told her not to tell. Okay? This is 8 years old. Do you see beautiful and sweet, or do you see I want to have sex? It's ridiculous. So he not only fools his family and his friends, all these supporters that write letters, he fooled us, trusted him. We thought when she was with him, because her mother and her grandmother were not that great people, she was safe. And that's what he does. He makes you think he is a good person. He makes you think he has everybody's best interests at heart, but he's a rapist. So to many, 17 years is not a long time to be in prison. But to us, and especially to Mandy, we have paid, and we will some way always pay for what he did to her. Whether it is from guilt for trusting Gerald, or from not seeing the signs of her being molested and raped, or the fear that people will try to justify that he is old and he won't offend again, or that his family needs him, or that being released will save taxpayers' money. My question is, what is a child's innocence worth after it is taken away and never be given back? And for that, I 100% believe he did it before her, he did it to her, and he'll do it again if he's given the chance. If his stepdaughter, who says she was not raped, it is because my brother saved her. He called her mother, and confronted her on the phone. He found out in 2000. I know what Gerald did. Were you at Walmart with him, with your daughter? And she said yes. And my brother said, he molested my daughter. Be careful. What did she do? Marry her.
Johnson, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
No, sir. Everything's covered.
Board ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, as I stated to you earlier, facts are the facts. You pled guilty. You accepted the consequences that day. I know, having been a judge, what goes on at a plea. I understand it's the judge's responsibility. I've been in the position of that judge who apparently said, I'm not going along with 5 years. This is too egregious. 17 years is where I'm going. Having seen all of those things, you having pled guilty, it's very clear to me that you committed these crimes. But you can't admit it to yourself. You continue to deny it. That is a typical example of a sex offender. You've done well while you've been in prison. You apparently have done well when you were on the outside to other people. You danced all around what happened. You admitted on one occasion you did something inappropriate, but you wouldn't concede what it was. I believe that you need more work. I think that you need to look introspective. You need to look inside yourself and admit to yourself what you did before you can heal and be, in my opinion, ready to be rehabilitated and released. You apparently, clearly from listening to your family, I think you have a great thing. I think they're supportive of you. I think they don't want to believe this because you can't accept what you did. So they can't accept it. And I'm not sure what you tell them, how you denied this all this time. That's a real problem to me. So I'm suggesting to you that you continue to try to learn what it is about you that caused you to do this and admit it to yourself, and then you can start the rehabilitation process. My vote today would be to deny your parole. I'm only one vote of 3. Ms. Wise?
This is, you've done a great harm to the community. And I recognize, I'm a retired probation parole officer, and I've seen many times where they don't admit because of the wonderful support they have on their side. And you feel like if I admit, I won't have that support. I get that. That's what I see today. I could be wrong, but that's what I see today. It'll be hard for you to tell your support, to be honest. But you're never going to be set free if you don't. You're really not. I concur. My vote is to deny for the reasons already stated on the record.
First off, I want to thank the victims that showed up here today. We appreciate it. I also want to thank Mr. Johnson's family for giving their side. But this is a very heinous crime, and due to victim opposition, I also vote to deny.
Mr. Johnson, you have 3 votes to deny your parole. I hope that you can go back and do more work on yourself and accept what you've done. That's the first step in rehabilitation. So good luck to you.
Let's unpack this. Wow. Wow. Where do we start? Where do we start? I don't know. You know, I think that this is one of the times I agree with what Miss Wise said. How he has such great support and he's afraid of losing that support. You know, they all show up believing what he said. For him to go now and change it to have to then tell them that for him to have to be the monster to all of them, to be the cockroach to all of them, he can't do it. But man, he made no sense. We're looking at the scariest kind of cockroaches here because they can hide in the shadows and they can even fool their own family. Up until now, after being in prison, to still keep the facade. I looked it up. I'll put in the links below the information of the case. There was no trial. He took a plea deal. But the victim, as you can see, who really is, man, putting up a fight since day one, he was about to get a plea deal, and she just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. He was going to get a plea deal of very minor, I think like just house arrest or something. And if this was the first time I've ever seen a hearing, I might start to wonder, because she's talking about fraud in the case, and that the district attorney was going to give him these deals. And I might have said, maybe she's a little wacko, maybe she's lying. But no, we've seen it firsthand. The Louisiana justice system gives wacko deals to cockroaches. We have seen it over and over and over again. So we know that it's true, as a matter of fact. And here was someone, a victim or a survivor, as a lot of you correct me in saying, a survivor who fought back, who fought against the system, who made sure that he would stay locked up. And now she shows up every 2 years and continues to fight back and keep that cockroach locked up. And you see the perpetrator, the cockroach's family, who is in just complete denial. They're choosing to believe that he is wrongfully convicted of this crime, that they're a victim of his attorney, who was disbarred. I don't know if it had to do with this situation, who his victim was making it all up. It was his step granddaughter. He was abusing her from the age of 8. Was it 8 to 15? The ages of 8 to 14. And he, even at his own hearing, he's saying, well, he inappropriately touched her. He's admitting to some wrongdoing, but not to all the wrongdoing. And it's just bizarre in the language that he's using. He's talking about victim awareness, and he's saying how much it meant to him. Well, what does it mean? What are you saying? You're like, everything that he said was just a contradiction. How can you accept a plea deal if imagine if he's innocent, if you're innocent, and your step granddaughter makes up some entire crazy story how you were raping her from the age of 8 to 15, and then you would just say, okay, I'm going to plead guilty because I thought it would just be 5 years and whatever. Man, it's scary stuff. really the scariest part is about how his whole family is sitting there, rolling their eyes, every type of mannerism and every type of just in total belief. They believe that what do they believe? Do they believe that he touched her inappropriately and that was it? And then that's okay. He served his time. And that his step-granddaughter is crazy, making it all up because, that's just what crazy people do. They go fight against the system for years and years and years and years because she wants to. No, that's not what a crazy person does. That's what someone who is abused does. Then the other daughter, I don't know. Who knows? There could be, maybe she wasn't abused by him, or she has a lot of pressure from her family, as you can see. But man, the best thing I think for him to have done, which I'm happy he didn't, was to have his family not show up, because maybe Miss Wise is right. He doesn't want to admit to anything. He's been holding a story, and he's now got himself in a corner where he's setting himself up to continuously get denied, which is great. I love the irony of it. And his refusal to admit what he's done, he's going to spend, I hope, all 17 years in locked up. And with his survivor showing up every 2 years to make sure he stays in there, it's going to happen too. I don't know why I have this thing here. A woman who is allegedly the victim of molestation and rape between the ages of 8 and 14 is speaking out against a plea deal in the works for the man accused of victimizing her. The Jeff Davis Parish case was headed to court on Wednesday, but now appears to be on hold. Since Friday, Mandy Miller and her relatives, this is the article I'm reading, it has a picture of her. This is on 2015. Like she went all out there speaking to the media. She made sure in every way that he wasn't going to get a plea deal, because it seemed that he knew how to work the system to do that. Was indicted on charge of aggravated incest. She says the case was set up for trial towards the end of this month when District Attorney's Office notified her of a proposed plea deal that she finds unacceptable. The Jefferson Davis Parish DA, Michael Cassidy, had accepted a plea deal from aggravated incest to indecent behavior with a juvenile, and the sentence is 4 years house arrest. That's the deal that they were going to give him. He literally was going to get a deal. The DA called her and said, we're going to give him 4 years house arrest. It started when I was 8 and continued until a few months after I was 15, said Miller. Family members of Mandy Miller have come from as far away as Dallas to support her. If they can't stop what they consider to be a huge injustice, they at least want to expose it. I think it's the absolute most depraved thing one could do to rob a child of their innocence. Gaudry and the family members say they cannot get an adequate explanation as to why the DA would consider a plea bargain so unfavorable to the victim, because a lot of the DA, we have seen this in Louisiana, don't seem to care about children. That's the bottom line. And thank goodness this DA showed up. How many cases have we seen the DA does not show up for these cases? Just to be incarcerated in his home is a travesty, a slap in the face, as well as my entire family, and we're not going to take it laying down. We're going to fight it all the way through. This is Mandy's father who said that. District Attorney Mike Cassidy refused to speak to KPLC, but he did speak to KATC. In exchange for a guilty plea, we're getting a guaranteed conviction. We're preventing the victim from having to be further traumatized by getting on the stand. We're avoiding any mistakes that would occur, and certainly we're also ending the case and bringing closure versus having this whole appellate process, he said. That's the DA, why he was going to give him a 4-year house arrest deal. Mike Cassidy. Mike Cassidy. Have we seen Mike Cassidy? However, in response, the victim, Mandy Miller, said she wants to testify. She's willing to testify. He was going to give her him 4-year house arrest so they can close it all up, so she wouldn't have to testify. Well, as we can see very, very clearly, she's very willing and happy to testify every 2 years if she has to. I would love to get on the witness stand and tell a judge and the jury exactly what this man has done to me, said Miller. Can you believe that? This is what they were talking about, how there was like a paralegal leaking information and how she literally, and this is what we've seen, we hear about this over and over again, where victims are she you know, again, she's a survivor and she is amazing, really. She had to fight this from day one, fight against really a corrupt, disgusting prosecution, district attorney. Who's this Michael Cassidy? It started like, what is wrong? This is what you get. This is what you get, Louisiana. Let's just see what's going on here. I can't find anything right now. He has a LinkedIn profile. Yeah, district attorney at district 31st district. It doesn't. I do want to find out Louisiana district attorney. Is he still in office? Oh, look at that. Jeff Davis, Parish District Attorney Cassidy, won't seek re-election in 2019. So he had the job for 29 years, but he did not seek re-election. Good job, because we're happy you're not there anymore. Who fights against a victim? How can you have a case where there's a grandfather raping his stepdaughter from the age of 8 years old until she's 14, and then you're gonna go and just like give a 4-year house arrest without even calling them? That's sick stuff, man. He got 17 years and it was pled down to indecent behavior, but the judge. Oh, and he only had to serve 2 years before seeking parole. That's why he took the deal. He knew. But the joke's on him until he can sit there and admit it. Although he could probably manipulate his way into that. I'm surprised he didn't go and tell his family, I'll just tell them I did it so I can get out. That might be a strategy next time. You know, what we're seeing firsthand here is how you know, you have two families. You have one side that's protecting the survivor, and then the other side that's protecting the villain. And hey, you can tell the difference. The one protecting the survivor, they spoke gracefully and and the one protecting the victim, it was like rolling their eyes and throwing these hissy fits. And I wonder what it is that they truly believe. Do they believe that? Do they believe that he's innocent, that she was out to get him, she was making it up because of some random vendetta, or she's just mentally ill? Do they truly believe that? I mean, what in their voice they were angry, and in the way that they were talking, and they were angry. They do seem to feel wrong. They seem to believe that they are the ones that's wrong. They do believe that, and I only feel bad, really bad for. I do feel bad for the daughter. What's her name? Maybe she's just stuck in a rock in a hard place. Who knows what happened really with her? Who knows what she's going through on that? This is one I feel like I want to watch again and comment again. I feel like there's so much to say, but with that, I'll let you go.